Now I have a tale for you, and this one's about boggarts. Now, depending on where you come from, a boggart might mean something different to you. For some people, a boggart is like a spirit that helps you out in the house, a bit like a brownie. For other people, a boggart is a shape-shifting creature. And then for others still, well, it's a bit like a ghost. And I think that's what it is in this story here. Well, there was a young lad, and his name was Samuel. And he was getting himself warm. He was standing a bit too close to the fire. And in that fire, all the wood that was burning away, it did what wooden logs do. They shift about, and sparks flick out, and just one spark flicked out and it landed on Samuel and it burnt him up, and that was the end of him. But it's not the end of our story, otherwise it'd be a really short story. And here on the floor there was a pile of ash and burnt bone, and then Samuel, he was looking down at that ash and the burnt bone, all that was left of him. And if that was all that was left of him and he was down looking at it, well, he must be a boggart, you see. And he'd never been a boggart before, and he didn't quite know what to do, and he began to cry boggarty tears, and then he remembered he had a friend. The sort of friend that perhaps you might have, a friend who was always ready with a good bit of advice, always had a good idea to help. And so Samuel went off to his friend's house to ask what he should do. Well, it was the night time, it was getting close to midnight, and he got to his friend's house, and he knocked on the door, but it made no noise, because he was a boggart, you see. But all the same, in his dream, Samuel's friend, he dreamt there was somebody at the door. His eyes opened, almost in a trance. He went down the stairs. He got to the door and opened it, and there was a boggart there. But the boggart said, Don't worry, it's just me, Samuel. I haven't come to haunt you. All it is," and he explained all that had happened with the fire, how he got burnt up, and, well, the predicament he was in. And Samuel said, "Well, I'm just wondering if you had any ideas what I could do." And his friend, who always knew what to do, said, "Well, what you must do, I've read about this in a book. You go down to the old churchyard, not the one with the church that people go to now, but the old ruined one next to it. You find the oldest gravestone there. And if you look behind that gravestone, there you will find a great worm. And the great worm tells you what to do next." And so that's exactly what Samuel did. He went off down. He went past the new church where everybody went these days, and he went to the old ruined church. And looking around through the churchyard there, he was looking for the oldest gravestone. He found one. It had a date on it, 1712, quite old. And then he saw another one which had a date, 1634, even older. And then he saw a gravestone which had nothing on it. All of the letters, all of the numbers, they'd all broken off with the frosts of many winters, and it was covered with mosses and lichens. That must be the oldest one, thought Samuel, and he peered behind it. And there was a great worm, and the great worm looked back up at him and said, "Hey up, Samuel, what's wrong with thee?" And Samuel said, "Well, I've been sent down here, and I was told that you'd know what to do next." And the great worm said, "Well, it comes to all of us in the end. All you mortals, at least. When you've finished your life, you bring down to me all that's left of you. I'll eat it up. If I can't manage it all, the little worms, they do the rest. And when you're all ate up, then you can go on to the next place." Now, by the next place, I don't really know what he means. He perhaps means heaven. It could mean another realm. I don't know. I've not met the great worm myself yet. But Samuel, he did as he was told. And he went off. And he went off back to the place where he'd been burnt up by that fire. And there he took a bucket, and he put into that bucket every last bit of ash, every last bit of burnt bone, making sure not to miss even the tiniest speck. And there, once he got it all in, he carried it back through the night towards the churchyard. He carried it along in that bucket. Now, there's not many of us have got the gift to see boggarts, but if anybody had been out, even without the gift, if we'd seen this bucket floating along, carried by an invisible hand, we would have been terrified. But it was past midnight and everybody was in bed. And Samuel, the boggart, got there with that bucket, and he put it down, and he said to the great worm, "Great worm, there I am. Eat me up, send me on to the next place." And the great worm looked and said, "I'm sorry, Samuel, something missing." And Samuel said, No, I made sure, got every last speck of that ash, all the bits of burnt bone, they're all there, and there's not a bit missing." And the great worm said, "Samuel, I've been doing this since the beginning of time. If I say there's something missing, there's something missing. Now think." And Samuel thought. Then he remembered. Before he had the accident with the fire, he'd had the accident where he'd been climbing a tree to get near the top, and then when he's nearly there, he'd slipped, he'd fallen, and his hand had come down so badly, all the bones in that hand, they were all broken right up to the wrist, and the doctor had had no other choice but to cut it off just above the wrist. Well, said the Great Worm, that's it, that's what's missing. Now go and fetch that. So Samuel, he went off to the doctor's house, and when he got there, it was just still after midnight, and he knocked on the door, but it made no noise, because of the boggart, you see. But all the same, in his dream, the doctor, he awoke, opened his eyes, went down the stairs in a sort of trance, got to the door, opened the door, ah! And if he was shocked, well, he should have remembered from the first time. But there was Samuel, the boggart. And Samuel said, well, I've not come to haunt you, doctor, I've just come to see. And he explained the whole story and said, so I was wondering, have you still got my hand? Have I still got your hand that I cut off 1.5 years ago? Of course I have. I can't bear to throw anything away. If you go and have a rummage in the pit out the back, you might find it. And so Samuel, he went round to the back of the doctor's house, and he went looking there, and he found, well, that was a left hand, and he was looking for a right hand. And then didn't know whose that was. And then he saw it, his right hand. And he realised why he hadn't recognised it at first, because it had gone a bit greeny grey in colour. But there he took it, and he carried it, and it went through the night. And again, if anybody had seen that disembodied hand, they would have been most terrified, but there was nobody around. And there he got to the churchyard, and he went to the Great Worm, and he said, there, Great Worm, there's my hand. Now eat me all up, send me on to the next place. And the Great Worm looked and said, I'm sorry, Samuel, there's still something missing. And Samuel thought, no. Oh, he remembered before he had the accident with the fire. He had the accident when he was climbing a tree. Before he had the accident when he was climbing a tree, he had the accident when he's rushing through the door, just as the door was slamming shut, and it slammed shut onto his hand. The fingernail went black, and it dropped off. Well, that's it, said the Great Worm. Go and fetch your fingernail. So Samuel, he went back off to where that had happened, and he got to the door, and he looked high and he looked low, and he looked from east to west, but he couldn't see it, and he had to return to the Great Worm without the fingernail. He said, I'm sorry, Great Worm, I can't find it. And the Great Worm said, no, Samuel, it's me that's sorry, because if I can't eat up every last bit of you, I can't send you on to the next place. And if I can't send you on to the next place, well, you'll be doomed to wander this earth forevermore, until you do find that fingernail. And so I know it's a strange tale, but such things like this are strange, and who knows, Samuel could even be walking around amongst you now. And I think the moral of this story is, keep all your toenail clippings just in case.